And exhale. And you can begin to move your fingers and toes or roll your shoulders to return your attention here, and you can come back and be fully present right here. So Frank Teseski is a Zen he created the Zen Hospice Center. And rather than me read a bunch of stuff, I probably will still tell you some about him. He created the Zen Hospice Center. He's a Buddhist teacher, respected, known for years. But I wanted to share with you this video that was on his website. So watch this for just a minute, and you'll know what he's all about.
Life and death are a package deal. You can't pull them apart. We cannot be truly alive without maintaining an awareness of death. Death is not waiting for us at the end of a long road. Death is always with us in the marrow of every passing moment. She's the secret teacher, hiding in plain sight. She helps us to discover what matters most. And the good news is, we don't have to wait until the end of our lives to realize the wisdom death has to offer. Over the past 30 years, I've sat on the precipice of death with a few thousand people. Some of them came to their deaths full of disappointment. Others blossomed and stepped through that door full of wonder. What made the difference was the willingness to gradually live into the deeper dimensions of what it means to be human. To imagine, at the time of our dying, that we will have the physical strength, the emotional stability, the mental clarity to do the work of a lifetime is a ridiculous gamble. This book is an invitation, actually 5 invitations, to sit down with death, to have a cup of tea with her. Let her guide you toward living a more meaningful and loving life. Without a reminder of death, we tend to take life for granted, often becoming lost in endless pursuits of self-gratification. But when we keep death at our fingertips, it reminds us not to hold on so tightly. Maybe we take ourselves and our ideas a little less seriously. We let go a little more easily. When we recognize that death comes to everyone, we appreciate that we're all in the same boat together. And that helps us be kinder and gentler to one another. The wisdom of death has a relevance not only for those who are dying and their caregivers, it also can help you deal with loss, with a situation that you might feel caught up in, or that you feel out of control about. Whether you're going through a breakup, or coping with an illness, layoff, or the shattering of a dream, or even a fight with a child or a colleague. As a companion to people who are dying, a teacher of compassionate care, and the co-founder of the Zen Hospice Project, most of the folks that I worked with were ordinary people. Individuals coming face to face with what they imagined to be impossible or unbearable, walking toward their own deaths or caring for someone else that they loved. All of them were my teachers. These people invited me in to the most vulnerable moments of their lives. And they made it possible for me to get up close and personal with death. And in the process, they taught me how to live.
What can death teach us about living? What can death teach us about living? So the part of the invitation for this is it's how to fully wake up. The hook, he says in the book, part of it is to fully wake up so that we can live fully. And he goes on to say the 5 invitations, a powerful and inspiring exploration of the essential wisdom dying has to impart to all of us. So he says he sat with over 1,000 people at the bedside as a hospice director of this Zen hospice chaplain as part of the Harvard Medical Center Mayo Clinic. And he started that in 2018. And it's just amazing to think about that. I mean, I've been with a few people that have passed and made their transition in my life. Can you imagine the input into him about dying with 1,000 people? So here's a oxymoron. To me, this book is not about death. It's not about death. It's about living. It's about living. We can find all kinds of religious books and non-religious books by atheists and scientists, religious leaders of all breadth to tell you what death is. They know what death is. And usually it's some kind of religious coping mechanism that we've come into. John Shelby Spong, here's one of the books. John Shelby Spong, his last book was, John Shelby Spong, by the way, was a Episcopal bishop, and he turned away from the literal translation of the Bible and the teachings of the Orthodox Church, stayed an Episcopal bishop until he died. But he wrote this book called Eternal Life, A New Vision Beyond Religion, Beyond Theism, Beyond Heaven and Hell. It was his final book. It was his recollection of what death really meant to him. So, but again, he says that what death has become to us, particularly in the West, the Orthodox West, is a pattern that we have a pattern of turning to religion to deal with the anxiety and fear of death. And all of us have some degree of that. He says that. John Shelby Spong said that. And then he says that toward the end of the book, I am comfortable with death and view it as a friend that must be creatively engaged. Now, the reason I pose that question that way as an oxymoron is because I was not taught that in the fundamental Orthodox Christian church. Death was something to be feared. So how many of you prayed that simple little prayer as a kid, now I lay me down to sleep if I die before I wake? We had no concept, no concept of it. John Shelby Spong talks about that in this book too. What in the world does that mean? Or what does it mean when my little Chihuahua, dies, and then her mom and everybody's saying she went to heaven? So we tend to have a lot of anxieties about death. And what I like about this book, it's refreshing in a way in that it says birth and death are the same. Let's look at the first slide. Life and death, and he said that on the video, life and death are a package deal. You can't pull them apart. So when I say it's not about death, the book's not about death, it's about life. It's about a different perspective. In Japanese Zen, he quotes this, Soji translates as birth, death. There is no separation between life and death other than the small hyphen, a line that connects the two. There's no separation between life and death other than the small line. Nothing separates the birth and death rather than, in that metaphor, just the small line. Next slide. And he quotes this. This is a great quote here. I'll show you this a couple of times. Death is not waiting for us at the end of a long road. Death is always with us in the marrow of every passing moment. She is the secret teacher hiding in plain sight. So I liked his metaphor saying, let's have a cup of tea. Let's sit down and have a cup of tea with her and process that and think about that. you know, as this husband experienced chaplain, if you will, he has so much to offer. Like Melissa said, the stories in here are numerous, and they pull on your heart. I've read the book and listened to it in audio through the car and other times, and even as I listened to it, it brought tears to me from memories and stuff. So it is a powerful, powerful experience, if you would. That's what this is all about: mysticism, experiencing the divine. So he wrote this. He wrote these 5 invitations, he said, on a cocktail napkin at 30,000 feet, flying across Kansas. He was on the way to do a documentary about. This was several years ago, about death and dying, and so he wrote. This came to him, and so the 5 invitations. Here are the 5 invitations. Don't wait. Welcome everything. Push away nothing. Bring your whole self to the experience. Find a place of rest in the middle of things. Cultivate, don't know mind. Cultivate, don't know mind. So those are the 5 invitations, and today we're just going to talk. We're going to hit on the highlights of what he says about don't wait. You can kind of jump to that, what that is, I bet, just the thinking of that. He says these are his attempt to honor lessons he's learned sitting beside so many dying patients. And the 5, almost like it reminded me of the 5 principles, but not, different. Mutually supportive principles permeated with love, reliable guides for coping with death, but equally relevant to living a life of integrity. So as I was doing this and looking at these 5 invitations, I always try to think about, well, what's the parallel with the Unity teachings? So some of the teachers, particularly Eric Butterworth, came to my mind. He talks about living in the flow. I don't think there's any better description of this idea of, and matter of fact, he talks about it in the book, living in the flow. But it isn't exactly the Unity Party line if we look at some of the readings of Charles Fillmore's. So let me read you this. Excerpt from the Revealing Word, and see if you think it's on the same path. And by the way, I like to do this because it challenges us to say, what do I really believe, or what do I believe? So you don't have to believe what Frank Ostasaski says, or you don't have to believe what you don't have to believe what I say. What we're trying to do is to teach each other how to see, not what to see, but how to see. That's the mystical experience, is teaching each other how to see. So this is out of Revealing Word, and a Revealing Word is a dictionary, if you will, of phrases that Charles Fillmore created right at the first of the 20th century. Physical death, he says death, physical dissolution of the body, the outer symbol of mental negation or spiritual inertia. I mean, instantly right there, what? What does that mean? As commonly interpreted, death is the absence of life in the body. Death is caused by man's failure to comply fully with God's law. It is the result of sin and has no uplifting power. A falling short of the law of life is sin. Sin causes discord. Now, in Unity, when sin is used, we just mean missing the mark. It's not something that's, there's a guy with a beard, white beard up in the sky gonna, beat you with a stick. It means missing the mark. It's our own missing the mark. We talked about that Thursday at Melissa's class as well. But he goes on to say, the wages of sin are death, quotes a Bible verse, but the free gift of God is eternal life. So again, it's so, Charles Fillmore at that time was, a lot of Unity was steeped in the Orthodox Christianity. I mean, that's but breaking away from that. So that tells you a little about this idea that death, what we have done with death. We have not, we're always afraid of it, a little afraid. There's some issues with us, and now that's what Frank is trying to tell us to do, is to embrace that and see how it can help us fully live. So on the door to possibility, don't wait. It's not like sitting in a waiting room waiting on death to come when we're in our lives. Don't put things off, he says. When people are dying, it is easy for them to recognize that every minute, every breath counts. But the truth is death is always with us. If we listen closely, the message we hear is don't wait. He says, don't wait. Embracing the truth that all things inevitably must end, encourage us not to wait in order to begin living each moment in a manner that is deeply engaging. We stop wasting our lives on meaningless activities when we acknowledge and embrace every moment, reflecting on our mortality, because, for most of us, me included, for most of my life, death is the elephant in the room. Death is, we don't talk about it. We just don't talk about it. And then while we associate impermanence, as Melissa was saying, with sadness and endings, it's not all about loss. He quotes in the book, and I wasn't aware of this, Melissa may be, in Buddhism, impermanence is often referred to as the law of change and becoming. Just as there are constant dissolving, there is also a constant becoming. As we dissolve these negative thoughts, we become more. And it's the idea that there is only change, and to embrace that idea of impermanence, everything is going to change. Sometimes he says that when he's sitting on the bed of somebody that's dying, he says sometimes the only thing left in the room is breath. Death is much like birth in that way. My great niece just had a baby, and I instantly went to there. Think about that. The first thing you do on a birth is wait for the baby to breathe. When my mom passed away just a little over a month ago, my sister was there with her as she took her last breath. So birth, and death are connected that way. So as I accept the fragility of my life, it has opened me up, and I've done that through a couple of different ways. And he talks about the ways it's done it to him. But embracing our own impertinence is a journey, taking us deeper and deeper and deeper. So toward our feelings and attitudes, and what can death, what can having a cup, I love that, having a cup of tea with this idea of what can it teach us. He talks about the present moment. We always say that, live in the present. And he refers to that, and living in the flow, described best as living in the flow. And this present moment is something we've created, because we've created this time, this linear time, and this present moment is gone. Just like that, the impermanence of the parallel of what we call the present moment, in an instant it's gone. Impermanence. So loving and letting go are inseparable. You can't love and cling at the same time. Too often we make a mistake, attachment for love, he says. So one of the things you've heard me say a lot is one of my favorite movies is Shawshank Redemption. I just think that movie's a great movie. It's not about a prison. It's about brotherly love. If you've ever watched it, there's a Red in there says to I can't remember the other character now. I know Red. He says to him, get busy living or get busy dying. Well, as a result of this book and my change in that, I'm going to change that. I'm going to change that for my life. It's still in the movie forever like that, and I know the intent of it. But going forward, I must correct it. I must correct that to say, get busy living. There's no qualification to it with it because they're side by side. So again, clothing. Death is closing. Death is not waiting for us at the end of a long road. Death is always with us in the mar of every passing moment. She is the secret teacher hiding in plain sight, helping us to discover what matters most. Namaste.
What was his name? Andy. Okay. All right. Nice. Very well done, Ron. Thank you. It's the first Sunday of the month, and that means that we're celebrating all the birthdays in March. And I know of two so far. Chloe. Happy birthday. And Steve Cook back there at the sound booth. Happy birthday, Steve. Are there any others that you know of for March? Any more birthdays? Guess not. Okay, well, we're ready to sing happy birthday to you, Chloe. And Steve. There you go. We got music? Yeah. Oh, maybe we don't. We can do it without music. We'll do it without. Ready? Happy birthday to you. There's no one like you. Uniquely created. I love knowing you. We bless you with life and abundance galore.